Did you hear about this? This is on Thursday. They have video and still photos of Kim Jong-un with his generals, and in the background of his super-secret command bunker are these gigantic maps of North America, and in Korean, in plain text, it says, "Plan for striking American mainland." And then there's straight lines from North Korea to San Diego, Los Angeles, Austin. Straight lines. By the way, that's not a ballistic path. A missile launched from North Korea would not follow a straight line across the Pacific. Not even to Hawaii, regardless. This was all for domestic consumption, because the average North Korean does not have any clue about how a rocket flies. These photographs were released so that the North Korean people could see how tough the leader is. You know, he's got 6 names. I'll tell you what his 6 names are and some fun facts about Kim Jong-un. My bottom line, however, is that's the dynamic of North Korea. And what you're seeing here is probably the most egregious example of the rhetoric that they have to use to stay in power. Could they be painting themselves into a corner? Yeah, they could. How do they get out of that corner? Well, someone has to fire a shot. Is nuclear war around the corner? The quick answer is no. Effectively, the way to think of what North Korea is doing is they live in an aquarium. Okay, I've already established that analogy. And from time to time, some of the underfish, the guppies, and then those little crustaceans that eat the algae off of the glass and keep the tank clean, they require a skit from time to time. They require a skit from the higher up on the pyramid fish to remind them why it is they're down there trudging in the poop, cleaning up the tank, and not getting anything to show for it. And the skit basically is the same thing every time. We're about to be attacked. Don't take us lightly. We will defeat you if you attack us, etc., etc. The important thing to remember about everything North Korea has said is all of their press releases are if provoked, if we're attacked, etc., etc., etc. They're not saying, and keep in mind, they're the ones who said a state of war exists between South Korea and us. But they didn't say, and we're going to attack imminently. They said, if we're provoked, we will fight according to the rules of war, and et cetera, et cetera. But even with this silly stunt with the maps of North America, and let me play you the CNN report that talks about these pictures of Kim Jong-un and his generals in a super-secret bunker hideout with these plain text maps of the plan to strike the American homeland.
Look past the picture of Kim Jong-un putting North Korean rockets on standby inside his military command. There's a chart marked U.S. mainland strike plan with missile trails aiming at Hawaii, California, D.C., and for some reason, Austin, Texas.
Hook 'em horns.
It's wishful thinking on Pyongyang's part. They can't reach the U.S. yet. But tens of thousands of American troops are well within range of a more limited strike.
Anywho, CNN is missing the point completely. If these really were projected attacks on North America, they would not be publicly released in photographs. This was all meant for domestic consumption, period. Now, the thing that the Russians are cautioning us about and cautioning China is that there is the corner that the North Koreans have painted themselves in is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's never been this small. It now requires for Kim Jong-un to succeed in his plan of coming out of this looking like a great brinksman and a great leader and great general. It requires somebody to shoot something. But since the United States and South Korea are not planning on attacking North Korea, then that will very quickly get around the country that they were basically crying wolf. So a gesture has to occur somewhere. And would the United States and South Korea, more importantly, would South Korea tolerate North Korea firing a couple artillery rounds into the open ocean or the edge of an island and then go away and have a parade? To be honest, yes. Because that would make it all go away. The one player in the entire act, China, that has the most influence is laying very low. They're telling North Koreans to just kind of bring it down a notch. You're up at 11, bring it down to 6 and all this, because the one player in the entire thing that stands to lose the most is not South Korea, because a North Korean attack of South Korea would be destructive, but it wouldn't succeed. It would lead to the end of North Korea. And China would feel the brunt of that. China's nightmare scenario is that North Korea, as currently constituted, implodes, rather than a smooth transition to something different. If China had its druthers, the world would stay the same right now, because they get 30 or 40,000 cheap laborers every day. Did you know this? That thousands of North Koreans cross into China every day and work in factories for even less than Chinese workers. And then they go back to North Korea. Why wouldn't they defect, you ask? Well, because they don't get the job unless they have family in North Korea, right? If they're single and they have no family, they're not going to work in China because they would never come back. But they come back because it's understood that if they don't come back, their kids, their wife, and their parents are all going to go to work camp. So the Chinese nightmare scenario is that North Korea implodes somehow. That one day the music stops and there's no more empty chairs left. That this game that they have to play within themselves to have credibility of going to the brink with South Korea, one day it runs out and you have to do something or else you lose all credibility. The Chinese are afraid more than anything that this is that time. These generals, these septuagenarian generals, they were 18. They were 19 during the Korean War. They know full well that they tried to liberate South Korea and they didn't do it. They've been training and planning. They've been being told for 60 years that one day they would do it. And they're about to die without doing it. So that's sort of a wild card as well. But believe me, the Chinese have far more to lose. Far more to lose. And they know this. They know that if the country implodes, 19 million walking skeletons would head north into China. They wouldn't go to South Korea, and the South Koreans, they wouldn't want them. They would set up refugee camps in North Korea. North Korea would become a gigantic ward of the state, a gigantic refugee camp. But the Chinese are absolutely terrified of 19 million people walking into China because they have nowhere else to go. So anyway, let me answer CNN's question. How scared should you be? You shouldn't be scared at all. The final scene in the 2013 skit of Kim Jong-un versus the world makes him a really big man. It could be ugly, and if the United States overreacts to it, it could get even uglier. What would be the ugliest thing? The ugliest thing would be that they actually do what they say and they invade South Korea. But they've been saying this stuff for 60-plus years, and they haven't done it since 1950.